Hey everybody, this is Avalon from Crafts Direct, and in this video, I will be showing you how to make some resin trinket dishes. And I'm going to be showing you a couple different molds, a couple different methods on how to make these. And you, of course, can customize them to however you want using different colors, different mix-ins. So follow along, and I will show you step by step how you can make your own resin trinket dishes. To begin, you are going to want to set up your workspace. You're going to lay down a drop cloth. Make sure that you have proper ventilation, maybe a fan, some windows open. You might even want a mask. Make sure that you have your gloves on, and then you are going to label your small cups with an R and an H for resin and hardener. You want to label the cups so that you can keep using the same cups and so that you're not mixing the two substances until you're ready to mix them. So first you will take your resin and pour it into the cup that's labeled with an R, and then you will do the same with the hardener. And you want to make sure that you are pouring equal parts resin and hardener. And so I like to have my cups side by side and to get eye level with it so that I can see that they are equal. Next, you will pour the resin and the hardener into a larger cup. It doesn't matter which one goes in first, but you will put both of them into a larger cup and then begin to stir. You'll notice that at first the mixture is kind of cloudy and you can kind of see both of the parts. And so you will mix until it is clear. That's normally about 3 minutes. So the important part with this is that you stir very slowly. I know it's really easy for me to want to do it fast, but this creates a lot of air bubbles. And so it's important to stir very slowly and to do this for about 3 minutes until you notice that the mixture is clear. After you have stirred for 3 minutes and it looks pretty clear, you will then set it aside for about 5 minutes to let some bubbles rise to the top. You will then take your heat gun and add a little bit of heat to the top to pop some bubbles. To start, we will grab the square mold, and we'll also grab our turquoise rocks and our light pink transparent dye. And the first thing that we'll do is take a small cup and pour our resin into that smaller cup because we'll only be needing a little bit of it. You will then take your transparent dye and add a few drops to the mixture. This all depends on how dark or how light you want your resin to be. You will then mix it together and then add your turquoise rocks to the mixture as well. We will only be pouring the first layer for this trinket dish, and so as you pour, you want to make sure that you are completely covering the bottom of the dish, and you want to make sure that you push it all the way into the sides, and you can even pick up and drop down the dish a few times to help move everything down to the bottom of the mold. And you should only be filling up a small amount of this trinket dish. And then make sure that the top of that trinket dish does not have any of the rocks sticking out, so you want to push those rocks down as well. Once all of the resin and the rocks are moved all the way to the bottom of the mold, there's nothing that's sitting on top, you will then take your heat gun and add some heat to the top and the sides of the mold. This helps to pop those bubbles, and then you will set it aside to cure for about an hour. Next, you will grab your heart mold and you will again pour your resin into the smaller cup because you will only need a little bit to begin with because again with this mold we are going to do some layers. And so once you've done that, you will then take your hot pink transparent dye and add some drops to your resin. You will then take some natural crystal flakes and add those to your resin as well and mix it all together. You will do the same thing that you did with the other mold where you will be filling the bottom of the heart, and you want to make sure that none of the resin or the sparkles are sitting at the top of the mold. You want it all pushed down to the bottom of the mold, creating that first layer. It's pretty hard to get all of the resin off the top of the mold, but just do your best. Of course, you're going to have some left over. But once everything is set, you will then take your heat gun and add some heat before you set it aside to cure for at least an hour. Next, you will grab your circular mold. This will be our last one that we do, and this is just one layer. And so we will pour our resin into that smaller cup. And then we are going to take our opaque dyes and put drops into the resin, and we will not be mixing it all together. We will just be layering the colors as we drop them in. And once you have enough color in your resin, you will then begin to pour it into your mold. You will want to pour slowly and just a little bit at a time, and you will have to pick up your mold and move some of the resin, maybe pick it up and drop it a few times to help move it all the way to the bottom of the mold. And you will just do this slowly and repeating those steps until you have the whole mold filled. Once you have done that, you will then take the heat gun and add some heat to the top and the sides of the mold to pop some bubbles. And then since this is the only step, you will set aside this mold to cure for 24 hours before you take it out of the mold. Once an hour has passed since pouring the resin into the square trinket dish and the heart trinket dish, you will then notice that the resin has cured, and you want to make sure that it doesn't need to be completely hardened, but just somewhat. You will then mix up some resin and hardener and take some pearl powder and add it to that small amount of resin. This will be the next layer in the heart mold. You will also take some of those natural crystals that you had used in that first pink layer and add it to this next layer as well. And you will mix it in before you begin to pour into the heart mold. You will add some heat with your heat gun and then set it aside to cure for another hour before we add the last and final layer. Next, we will do the last layer of the square trinket dish, and we will add some of that pink transparent dye to another small batch of resin and mix it together before pouring it into the square mold and filling it all the way to the top. Add some heat with the heat gun and then set it aside to cure for 24 hours before you pull out the completed trinket dish. Once an hour has passed since pouring that blue layer in the heart mold, you will then pour your very last layer. You will mix up a small amount of resin and hardener, and then you will put in your purple transparent dye and add a few drops, and then add in those natural crystals again and mix it all together. and then pour it into the heart mold all the way to the top. Add some heat to the top and the sides of it to pop any bubbles, and then set aside to cure for 24 hours before you can pull out your completed heart trinket dish. Once each trinket dish has sat for over 24 hours since its last layer, you can then check to see if it is fully cured, and then you can pull them out of the molds, and then they are ready for use. Thank you so much for watching this video. You can shop all the products needed to make these trinket dishes at craftsdirect.com/projects.